Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It. The NBA season is officially on their way, and we got to do some first impressions. This episode is going to be mainly focused on kind of half the league. I'm not going to go in and deep dive every single team like I did before the season, but this is more so we've seen teams play about 5-6 games or so. What do I think of them? What are my first impressions of the team, and what do I think they need to change if they're falling behind early on in the season, or if they're getting out to a really, really good head start? Got a handful of teams, some of the more bigger stories that I feel like that I've kind of caught up on at the start of this NBA season. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. NFL and NBA content throughout the entirety of their seasons. And if you are an audio listener, much appreciated. Make sure to leave the podcast of 5 stars on all those platforms as well. But getting into it, gotta start with the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that is 8-0, the only undefeated team in the league at this point. And main question I have, are they legit? It's seeming like it. The coaching change with Kenny Atkinson from Bickerstaff has seemed to do wonders offensively for this team. In the past, this team has struggled to really score the basketball efficiently. Now I feel like they're scoring so easily. With the coaching change, I feel like Evan Mobley seems to have taken a jump offensively for sure. I feel like his offensive game is always going to result in him being a little up and down throughout the season just because he is a big that can't really shoot, and he's playing the 4, so there's always going to be some kind of things in his way. But I think he's definitely grown and become more comfortable. I've seen more stretches of him just taking the ball down coast to coast and just finishing, which he does have the talent to do. And then Darius Garland. He looks back. He just had a huge game against the Milwaukee Bucks. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks in back-to-back games. He looks a lot more comfortable. I feel like a lot of it last year was him just not being healthy, being banged up throughout the year, having some weird injuries. I know he had an injury with his jaw and stuff like that, which made it so he couldn't eat. So he had a really, really rough year last year. Big bounce-back season, it looks like, for Darius Garland. Love to see it. And I think the fit with him and Kenny Atkinson and Donovan Mitchell, when it comes to planning out what that backcourt can be, I feel like he is just much more, knowledgeable as a coach when it comes to the offensive side of the ball compared to Bickerstaff, who is a more defensive-minded coach. But with this team, when you have kind of a set-in-stone defense wing your front court, I feel like you need more of an offensive mind to kind of unlock this team and what they can be. And I think Kenny Atkinson has done a really good job of that, like I thought he would preseason when I also talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers. And with Donovan Mitchell, this seems to be a big step forward, even though the stats might take a step back this year for Donovan Mitchell. This is probably the most efficient he's been to start the season. I feel like he's just letting the game come to him more and more, letting Darius Garland be able to be more of assertive on offense. And I feel like that's something that has kind of dialed back in the past since Donovan Mitchell has arrived. Darius Garland has turned into more of just a playmaking guard at times with this Cleveland Cavaliers team when they need him to be aggressive scoring the ball as well, because I think the additions on this bench, they don't really have a ton of scoring, but they have some good pieces coming off this bench. And Ty Jerome, Isaac Okoro's kind of always been that in-between. He's kind of playing that wing position for them. I feel like he's always just been a little bit out of position. I do want them to go address the small forward position, because I think that's the only thing that is keeping this team from really looking at the Boston Celtics in the eye in the Eastern Conference. I know it's early on and they're 8-0, but from what I've seen throughout these first 8 games is more of they still might have problems matching up with Boston because of the lack of size in that backcourt and at that wing position that could give them some problems, especially with how big Boston is as a team. I mean, Derek White's no small guard, same with Jrue Holiday, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", Jason Tatum 6'9", so all those guys playing on the perimeter, I feel like that could cause challenges to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I bring this up because every team in the Eastern Conference, at that top echelon of the Eastern Conference, they're trying to look Boston in the eye and say that we can't compete with you guys. I think the Cavs are on the right path, but I think they definitely do need to address that small forward position. I wish they would have did it this offseason, but maybe them being patient is going to help them land the guy that I think could perfectly fit this team. I've heard some, Cam Johnson's always an easy one to kind of say that could fit with this team. I love the spacing, but I think they need to go with somebody maybe that can be a little bit more defensive minded with that backcourt, and the lack of defense that they can provide at times. So I think they need to lean into more so somebody more defensive minded. But we'll see if that player does come around the deadline. Other than that, Cleveland Cavaliers off to a great start. Love what Kenny Atkinson has been able to do with the team. They are a strong 8-0 with a lot of good wins under their belt. But I expect the Cavs to be a dominant team like this the whole rest of the way and the rest of the season. Interested to see what they do end up doing throughout the season in terms of possibly making a move to bolster up this roster. Next, we have the Boston Celtics. Still the top dog, still the team to beat, 7-1. Like I said, every team in the Eastern Conference and that top echelon of teams in the Eastern Conference are just trying to look at Boston in the eye, prove that they can compete with the Boston Celtics throughout a 7-game series. I haven't really seen a lot. They obviously just wiped the floor with the Knicks in that opening game. I mean, historic numbers from 3 for sure. Want to see them run that game back. It was the first game for the New York Knicks with their entire new team, it feels like. They're going to have to take some time to get it going. But other than that, I can't really take it too much into account of what the Knicks will get into them later. But Boston Celtics, still the team to beat. Still without Kristaps Porzingis. Still are just better than everybody, and doesn't matter. Joe Mazzulla, I feel like, has really found his footing as a head coach in this league, and I really like what they're doing offensively. I just think Tatum is having a phenomenal start to the year. The jump shot looks back, it looks pure, and look at him be mainly the point guard for this team with the way they run their offense. It's a lot of pin downs and getting Jason Tatum into the middle of the floor. Then he's able to go one-on-one and make a play out of that. And I feel like his playmaking ability has grown so much to where, like, you're perfectly fine with him kind of being the main distributor, because it's either going to rely on Jason Tatum getting a bucket for himself or him being able to find the open shooter, because he's so tough of a cover one-on-one that you have to kind of send the help in the rotation pieces. So looking at that, I think Jason Tatum offensively, the shot looks back, the playmaking looks elite. I think he's definitely in the pace to win MVP this year. I think he is the front runner, in my opinion, to win MVP this year. That's what I had as my preseason pick. Boston Celtics are going to be a top team in the league record-wise. He's right on pace to win MVP. And I'm interested to see how they look with Kristaps Porzingis coming back. And I think they're starting to figure out how to kind of shuffle the deck in terms of their bench. They're not a deep team, but they do get really, really good minutes from Peyton Pritchard when needed. So it's looking like the only thing stopping this team is health. If this team stays healthy, especially the core 4 of Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, if those 4 stay healthy, you get enough from Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, and even some of the other guys off that bench that can bolster you up and get you through the regular season for sure, or up until just KP gets healthy, because when KP gets healthy, I don't really know if there's a team that can beat this team in a 7-game series. Have yet to see it, obviously, but I guess the future will tell. Getting into the next, Orlando Magic. They are definitely in trouble. Paolo Banchero out for multiple weeks. Who is somebody who was having a breakout season. He had a 50-point game. He was just doing everything you needed on the floor. But he is their really only source and reliable option offensively. I feel like Franz is super, super hit or miss to start the year. I feel like it's either you're getting a really, really good Franz game, or you're getting kind of the inconsistent Franz game that he really isn't doing a whole lot out there, especially offensively. I feel like Paolo is that main distributor, kind of like how I really do see a lot of like a LeBron James to his game. There's nothing he can't do on the floor offensively. His playmaking ability has grown. The jump shot has really come along at the start of this year, but it sucks that he's gotten hurt, because they are definitely in trouble without him. They don't really have anything to work with. They've dropped their 4 straight games. They're 3-5. So they just lost 4 straight after a breakout season from Paolo Banchero, and they don't really have a lot of moves to pivot to, other than kind of hoping one of these young guys progresses and is able to help keep this team afloat. But in the Eastern Conference, which I feel like is going to be very, very stacked this year, I think the Magic might be kind of playing a little bit from behind. And I think it could come down to the end of the season for the team making the playoffs, because with Paolo missing a couple weeks and what I've seen from this team without him, it's going to be a very dark time for the Orlando Magic until Paolo Banchero does step back on the court. Gratefully, it's not anything too crazy, like he's not out for the season, but these early season games are very, very crucial to kind of pivoting you into what you want to look at the rest of the year. And kind of we'll re-talk about this when I talk about another team out west. But I feel like it's just better to start out fast and then start playing from behind. And then I feel like once you start playing from behind, it just gets... I've seen teams try to play from behind. It doesn't really necessarily work out. But in the Orlando Magic case, it's out of their control with an injury. I just think that they are going to just have to do what they can to kind of keep themselves afloat until they can get Paolo Banchero back. Once they get him back, this Orlando Magic team is going to be fine. But what I've seen from this unit without him, they're definitely in trouble for sure. Now, talking about the New York Knicks. Obviously, got blown out opening night a couple weeks ago at this point. Didn't really want to take too much stock into that. Obviously, night one, this is basically a whole new fresh slate of a team. But this is going to take some time to get it going for this New York Knicks team. I really want to see them get Mikal Bridges involved in the offense more. For what you gave up for him, they're just not really using him a lot in the offense. Karl-Anthony Towns needs the ball and Jalen Brunson needs the ball, obviously. But there's a lot of cases where we've seen what Mikal Bridges can do offensively. He can do a lot more than just stand in the corner and spot up for three. I know there's been the big narrative about his jump shot, but I feel like they need to get him involved more offensively because of the lack of they have off that bench. Deuce McBride can kind of be hit or miss at times, but they don't really have a whole lot of scoring off that bench. So I feel like they could definitely use Mikal Bridges in more of an offensive-minded way than more of just being like a spot-up shooter. For what they gave up for him, you could have went and got a spot-up shooter that is doing what Mikal Bridges is doing right now, right? He's averaging like 14, 15 a game when he was just averaging upper 20s. Oh, quick year or two ago with the Nets. So, like, I just feel like there's a whole offensive side of this team that has yet to be unlocked, and there's still a lot of time left in the season. Obviously, it's super, super early, but I just don't know. Like, this Knicks team, like, did it sound better than it's actually becoming? Because I have question marks about Tibbs, because this doesn't feel like a Tibbs-oriented team. This doesn't seem like a Tibbs-built team, right? When you look at the past Knicks teams, you could tell Tibbs had his like stamp of identity on those teams. They were grit and grind. They were hustles to the ball. They had a lot of guys on that team that would just felt like a Tibbs guy. Like DiVincenzo felt like a Tibbs guy. Julius Randle felt like a Tibbs guy. Mitchell Robinson's hurt. He feels like a Tibbs guy. They're missing him desperately. Like, now you're looking at this team, I feel like now you have two guys on the court where you question their defense at times, and now it's like they have more of an offensive-minded team to a defensive-minded team, which I feel like they've had in the past. And I feel like it's a whole identity shift, which is going to take the New York Knicks time to kind of grasp of what they are going to be as a team. And I feel like they're just lacking a little bit of identity this year compared to the past 2 years with the New York Knicks since they got Jalen Brunson. So I think there's going to take some time to kind of figure out their identity. I'm not really worried about the Knicks whatsoever, because I feel like once they do get Mitchell Robinson back, that kind of gives them a balance at that center position that's going to be very beneficial for the Karl-Anthony Towns in terms of some of the lineups that they can go out there with. But I do think the Knicks need to find their identity, but I do think they're going to figure it out. This team is built more so for the long term. They have all of their guys under contract. So even if this might not be the year for them, and this is just a big year for gelling and continuity, still a plus. I think the Knicks can still compete for a championship. Don't make it think like I think they're not in the race this year at all. But I think the continuity and getting all these pieces to really fit together from a coaching aspect to a player's aspect is going to take a little bit more time throughout the season than maybe many anticipated. Now going into the main two teams that are just in deep waters, right? Two teams that I think are in very deep waters are the Bucks and the Sixers. We'll start out with the Bucks. They are 1-6. Back-to-back losses to Cleveland. They have lost 6 straight games. A lot of bad losses, too, on that schedule. I know they had ones with the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies have been hurt throughout this early part of the year. I know Desmond Bane's been in and out of the lineup as well. They just got Triple J back as well. So looking at that, I just think this team just isn't good. They're just not a good team. They have Giannis and Dame. That connection just doesn't seem to work. I really do feel like Dame doesn't want to be there. I feel like he never wanted to be in Milwaukee from the get-go and from the first place. I just don't see this. I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for this team. I think Chris Middleton, him having no timetable to come back, that could be kind of a saving point in the season, getting him back, because I do think he brings this whole unit together. He has no timetable to come back. They didn't really make any big time moves when they know Chris Middleton was going to have double surgery on his ankles. No timetable for him to return. There isn't much hope for this team. I still can't believe they really went off of Adrian Griffin. He was 30-13. I just don't get the Doc Rivers hire. I still don't. I didn't at the time. I don't now. Doc Rivers is somebody who is a motivator of a coach. He's a motivator. Look at his days with the Clippers pre-Kawhi and Paul George, when they had kind of a ragtag group of players on that team. But I feel like they played above because Doc Rivers is a motivator level coach compared to somebody that can deal with star players. This is the definition of two sides of a coin. When the Clippers team, he had a bunch of guys that were kind of in the middle of the pack guys. They didn't really have a superstar to go to late in games. It was kind of by committee. Now he's dealing with stars. Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, right? Chris Middleton's not healthy. They don't have the depth. They can't guard for anything. This might be the worst defensive team in the league on the perimeter from a backcourt stance. They can't guard anything on the perimeter whatsoever. I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel for this team. This is somebody who was very, very high, and I felt like the Bucks were kind of getting slept on. This is where I was proven wrong. They look terrible. They look awful. I'm already seeing the Giannis mock trade rumors start to hit Twitter and everything else like that. Like, I just think nobody really wants to be in Milwaukee at a certain point. I think the management has definitely messed up gratefully to where they are now as a team. So looking at that, I don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel for this team. They have some bad losses on their schedule already. They're getting in the Eastern Conference, which I feel like is going to be stacked. But they would need like a heroic Dame and Giannis connection, which I don't feel like they're connected at all at this point, to kind of dig themselves out of this early season hole. It can be done, but it's just looking at this team, I don't think Dame wants to be there. I think Giannis is a little bit fed up as well. But from reports and rumors, this was exactly what Giannis wanted. Giannis wanted Doc Rivers to be the head coach, even though Adrian Griffin had a good record winning-wise last season. And I just feel like nothing has really meshed, nothing has really connected and hit the ground running. And I just feel like this team is destined for a deadline blow-up. That's just what it is looking like at this current point in time. Because they don't really have any avenues and pivot points to move. Like, Chris Middleton has zero to no value at this point on the trade market. What are you really getting back from an aging Brook Lopez to really bolster up this roster? What are you getting from Bobby Portis in the trade? Like, that's nothing that they can do other than blowing it up is going to make this team all of a sudden hit the ground running and be a lot better. So looking at that, I think they need to really address what they're doing right now, and I think they need to maybe jump on this a little bit earlier rather than wait till the deadline and kind of things start to fizzle out. I think they could really address what they have going on right now currently, and I just think the only avenue for this team is to possibly blow it up. I think that's really the only thing this team could do to really put them in a position to be better for the future. Because right now, they don't have young talent, they don't have draft capital, they don't have an identity, they can't guard, they don't have depth, the stars don't want to be there themselves. Like, it's just all bad in Milwaukee. I think this all started out as soon as they brought in Doc Rivers. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt because they had Dame and Giannis, and I feel like with that pairing, you could really do some special things. But I was proven wrong. This team, I feel like, is finished. Now getting into the 76ers, now they are also 1-6, losing 3 in a row. PG came back against the Phoenix Suns last night. Looked solid coming off of an injury. He's going to be able to ramp it up. He's going to be looking a lot better as soon as he gets a lot healthier as well. But, man, this is an early season hole that has a Philadelphia 76ers fan. I would be worried if I was one. Because you're 1-6. You lost 3 straight. PG, you're going to get back, so that's definitely going to help you. Joel Embiid had the altercation with the reporter, which I can't even blame Joel Embiid for with some of the comments that were said. I feel like some people and reporters kind of get out of their line a little bit, and I feel like Joel Embiid was kind of in the right, so I'm not going to really comment on that further. But looking at this, I think until Joel Embiid comes back, this team is always going to be super shaky, even with Paul George coming back. This is a team that is built to be around Joel Embiid. Now he has the suspension on top of him not really having too much of a crazy timetable. I haven't heard any speculation of if it's weeks or months for Joel Embiid to be out, but I feel like they're going to be better once they get PG going. But I think this team is still going to be super shaky, and they're going to have an uphill battle and a hole to climb themselves out of once they get Joel Embiid. But if they can get Joel Embiid healthy, this team is going to be elite. Don't get it twisted. When Joel Embiid's healthy, he's one of the best players in basketball. It's just when he is healthy, can he be healthy? That's always going to be the main question for this team. I think they can get out of this hole a little bit once Paul George gets fully ramped up and came off that injury. But I just think this team's going to continue to be super shaky until they do get Joel Embiid back. That's just kind of my thoughts on the 76ers. Until I see Joel Embiid fully healthy on the court, I have to look at this team with a grain of salt because this team is built to be around somebody like Joel Embiid. Haven't seen him healthy. feel like it's a long shot to see him healthy at this point in his career for a full NBA season. So I wonder what they're going to do. They've already talked about him not playing back-to-backs and that whole argument as well. Don't know how true that is. I got to see it to believe it, because I feel like him not playing back-to-backs is just like a huge slap in the face to the team. I understand he's trying to manage and stay healthy and everything else like that, but him not playing back-to-backs because he's trying to prevent an injury, because I understand he's a superstar player, that is not going to always just fly with some guys on the team. Now, I'm not in the locker room, but I just have that feeling that him trying to prevent injuries is going to cause a rift and a divide in that locker room. That's just my prediction. That's my point on it. With him not playing back-to-backs, like I said, I understand him and his injuries and trying to prevent it. But if the back-to-back thing is true and he's not going to be playing back-to-backs, I think it's going to cause a rift in the locker room. When he's fully healthy and fully able to play and he's not playing back-to-backs, that's going to cause a rift in the locker room. I can see it now. It is going to cause a rift in the locker room if he's not healthy enough to. If he's healthy and he's just not playing back-to-backs to try to stay healthy, I can tell you right now that's going to be a problem. I can see it already being a problem in the media. I can see it being a problem in the locker room. It's already being a problem now, and I think it's going to really handcuff a great coach in Nick Nurse, because he's going to have a hole to climb out of once Joel Embiid does get back and gets healthy to climb his team out of. And if he's not going to have his superstar level players to play back-to-backs, it is going to be desperately, desperately hard to climb themselves out of this hole. But like I said, got to take it with a grain of salt. Got to see it before I believe it, because those are all just speculations and rumors. But if it is true, I think those things could definitely happen for the 76ers team. Now, getting into OKC Thunder, I think the window is now officially open. I think the window is now open for the OKC Thunder to win a title. I know they were very, very good last year, but I feel like with the additions that they have and Alex Caruso and just the development of their young guys, I feel like Chet's taking a step. J-Dub's kind of really the same JW was last year, but in terms of taking a step, I think Cason Wallace has taken a step. I think Chet has taken a step. They're doing all this without Isaiah Hartenstein. Once they get him back, that's just more of an interior presence to where I feel like you will see more of Chet at the 4. I feel like that's when he can really flourish his game and being a really, really good help side defender. Interested to see how they do look with somebody like an Isaiah Hartenstein on this team. Going into it, obviously, not too much to talk about. I'm interested to see, because you see the rumors of like a Giannis out on the market. They have 5 first-round draft picks this year. 5. They have a plethora in the next up-and-coming years. I wonder what they do. Like, they have to eventually do something with all that draft capital. They can't just keep on drafting guys. Like, they already have somebody in Nikola Topic who isn't going to play for them this year. I feel like he's going to be out for a majority of the season. He's not even going to crack the rotation. He wasn't even going to crack the rotation as is. So he's somebody they drafted who isn't even going to touch the court for them. This is a championship winning team. So, like, when do they do something with these draft picks, right? When do they pivot and actually do something with these draft picks? I'm super interested to see. I'm not saying it has to be Giannis or whatever they're going to do. I'm interested to see what it is, though, because they have the best package to offer any team for a superstar. Is that something they should do? I don't know, right? They're in such a weird spot to where, like, I think they're going to have to compete for a championship, but it's just like, are they? Because they still are super, super young. They still have a lot of years left with this kind of core unit. So, like, I think the window is now officially open this year, but it's like, there's such a weird, interesting spot to where, like, they can get a lot better throughout trades, but it's like, I feel like sometimes there can be too much, but I feel like less can be more at times. And I feel like they have a lot of assets, and I hear their names attached to a lot of star guys of who, if they were to become available, they could have a package for. So I just think it's super, super interesting to see OKC have all these assets and see how they manage it. See how Sam Presti really manages all these assets. Like I said, 5 first-round picks this year, plethora of seconds, and they got a ton of first-round picks down the line. Interested to see what they end up doing with all the draft capital. I just think it's an interesting topic, especially where they are and how good they are right now with all the young talent they already have on their roster. They're in a good spot, but a complicated spot as well. I think it can be a little bit overwhelming. Even just me, just being a fan of the game, just looking over them, like 5 first-round picks, I'm like, geez, they already have so much young talent that really could be starting caliber players on the team that are just sitting on the bench, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see where they go from here moving forward. But I feel like the championship window for the Oklahoma City Thunder has officially opened this year. Talk about the Golden State Warriors. Is the depth real? Yes, I think it is. They are 6-1 on the season. A lot of those games are kind of games that they should win. I think they still have the talent to win, but 3 of those games are without Steph Curry. Now, from a Golden State Warriors fan in the past years, if Steph Curry isn't playing, you're probably not winning that game in the past 2 years. Especially now that even with that Jordan Poole year, even when Steph Curry was out, they were really never the favorites to win any games that they were in. But you had 3 wins without Steph Curry. You get Steph Curry back last night against Washington. Now you're 6-1. I feel like the continuity and the vibes are a lot better with this team compared to last year. I really like what I've seen from Brandon Przemski, especially as a backup point guard. I think he's like a crazy plus 93 on the season. He's somebody who is like, I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than Tyus Jones, but he's reminding me of what his role is right now of Tyus Jones, somebody who's going to go in, do all the little things, not turn the ball over. I do think he needs to be maybe a little bit more aggressive offensively. I think there's a lot on that bench to where like he should be taking majority of the shots in some of the lineups he is in because they can have so much versatility with some of their different lineups. But I do think this team in these next couple of games are going to really put a stamp on this team of if this the Golden State Warriors team is for real. I love their depth. I love what they've gotten. I mean, Buddy Hield has been incredible to start the year. I really like what they've gotten from DeAnthony Melton. I think Kyle Anderson is just the perfect player to put in this Warrior system. He's going to do all the little things. Trey Jackson-Davis, I feel like he's taking a jump just physically and being able to like really be a 5-man in this league. I like what I've seen from Draymond to start the year. Andrew Wiggins, flashes. I feel like Andrew Wiggins is always going to be kind of that up and down style of guy. But when he gives you that game, man, he's giving you 20 and at least 12 rebounds, right? So like when he's hitting on all cylinders, he's going to be good and effective for this team. The depth is really showing. They're able to have 5, 6, 7 guys in double figures every single night with how they move the ball and space the floor. The only thing I would have to say about this Warriors team before we get into the next 4 games is like, I don't know about Jonathan Kuminga. I am so in the middle about Jonathan Kuminga and his fit with this team because with this team, this ball is moving. Like 2 seconds, if you're not even making a play, you're moving the ball, back cut, a pin down, swing pass. Like this Golden State Warriors team is moving the ball, and I feel like Jonathan Kuminga is somebody who, I'm not going to call him a ball stopper really, but he's somebody for his offensive game in the half court especially, he's phenomenal in transition. When he gets the ball in transition, downhill, dunk, everything. I love what he gives them in transition. But there's certain cases where I'm just like questioning the fit, and I kind of see the lens of why they haven't given him his extension yet, because I feel like they're also unsure about the fit as well, because he's somebody that kind of needs the ball a little bit to rock out. He kind of seems like he needs to get the ball in the post or on the mid post or the wing to kind of really lock out in that half court. So like, I'm super interested to see where they go with the Jonathan Kuminga route, because I can see an avenue and a mindset where you're a GM and you're like, you know what? We're not really convinced in paying him all this money. We'd rather pay it to somebody who maybe right now is a little bit better than Jonathan Kuminga that fits the situation better. And then we're just going to ship Jonathan Kuminga off, or we're going to play the patient route, wait it out, see if he can really truly fit with this system. Then we'll address it in the offseason. So it's very interesting to see, because I feel like he's somebody who, in terms of a value asset in the league, I feel like the more and more they wait to trade him, the less they're going to get for him, because he is somebody who's going to need to get paid. He's a younger player, and he's kind of reminding me a little bit of the Jalen Green situation. You know the talent is there, but the inconsistencies are there as well. And with the Golden State Warriors, I'm interested to see if that fit is still there. Like, let me know in the comments what you guys think Jonathan Kuminga's future is. Is it with the Golden State Warriors, or is it with a different team? Because I feel like he has the talent, but I don't know if the fit is right with the Warriors and what they're trying to do and build for the future, to where I think they could possibly pivot and maybe move on from him to get somebody maybe better right now, rather than pay Jonathan Kuminga all-star plus money with how the market is for their future, right? Going to be interested to see where the Warriors go. Getting into their next 4 games, this is going to be the really solidifying point. They got Boston tomorrow on time of this recording. In Boston, they got Cleveland, they got OKC, and then they got Dallas as their next 4 games. I think if you're pretty happy with splitting, getting 2 of the 4, I think Boston could be a winnable game because I don't know the status of Jaylen Brown. He's missed the past couple of games, and I feel like this team is going to get up to play Boston, especially last year in Boston when they got killed by like 50. I think they're going to really get up to play Boston this year. Cleveland's going to be a tough one because of their size. Dallas has been one of the best defensive teams all year. OKC is going to be a nice, fun matchup. I know that Dallas game is an NBA Cup game as well next Tuesday. So this is going to be a really good stretch of games for us to see what this Warriors team is really about. Next, we're going on to the Phoenix Suns, who I'm very high on. I was high on to start the season in the preseason. They've definitely taken a step. I love what they're getting out of Tyus Jones. It just seems like the offense is just like so calm. The offense just seems so calm when Tyus Jones is at the helm. Now you're looking at it, it's either easier to get Devin Booker the ball in his spots, either you get Kevin Durant the ball in his spots. I just love what they've gotten from Tyus Jones. Now, I do have some things I don't like about this team. I think Mike Budenholzer has coached his ass off. Offensively, this team just looks a lot smoother. I feel like everybody's just setting each other up perfectly. I think they're moving the ball at an extremely high rate. They're unselfish. Kevin Durant, unselfish star. Devin Booker, unselfish star. Even Bradley Beal, unselfish star. They're just moving the ball, looking for the best single shot. And I feel like the thing that is going to lead to this team becoming really, really good or not is the defensive side of the ball, right? We're going to talk about Ryan Dunn, who, in my opinion, has been it's not even been close, in my opinion. He is easily the most impressive rookie this year. Looking at him match up with James Harden, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and what he's been able to do defensively, the main knock on him was his shooting. If teams knew Ryan Dunn was going to be this good early on in his career from three, he would have been a lottery pick. Easily he would have been a top 10 pick. Because that defense, you don't just find. He is an elite level defender, and the shot is looking like he is just shooting it with confidence. I feel like this is also a transition from college to NBA with how much more spacing there is in the NBA. And when he's playing with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, he's going to get open shots. Some teams have tried to dare him to shoot, and he has burned teams. If he can shoot it consistently, he's going to have to play with this team regardless because of his defense and what he gives you. But if he can shoot the ball consistently, this team is going to be very, very good. The only thing I don't like about this team, I don't like the Nurkic fit. I really, really don't like the Nurkic fit. Nurkic is a big that kind of needs the ball in his hands to really show his value and really be effective. But I feel like there's times where it's like hard to get him the ball because you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Tyus Jones, who are commanding the ball, right? They're the ones with the ball in their hands, and their touches are more of a priority for the Phoenix Suns' success than a Nurkic, if you know what I'm saying. So, like, I just feel like they could really pivot and maybe go get more of an athletic rim runner of a big compared to Nurkic. I like his playmaking ability, but I feel like when you have Tyus Jones and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, guys that can create, I feel like some of that playmaking isn't really needed. I think he still is a good enough rebounder for this team, which is something that they do lack because they're a little bit smaller of a team. But I just feel like they need to pivot. They might need to pivot off of Nurkic. I just feel like he's not really the best fit for what they have going on there in Phoenix. And I really also want to kind of talk about Bradley Beal and what I've seen early on this season. He is... There's just times where Bradley Beal, I feel like, doesn't really know his role on the court. And it's kind of hard because, like, he's kind of gone back to, like, early career Bradley Beal in a way to where he's more so being used as a spot-up shooter at times. But he has had games where, like, you see the playmaking, you see the shot creation ability, but he hasn't really had that solidifying game to where I'm like, oh shit, they're going to Bradley Beal down the stretch every single rip. He's more so being used as a spacer and a shot creator. But then it's just like, here's my only conflict. It's like, that's kind of what you have Grayson Allen for, right? And you gave Grayson Allen an extension. But I feel like this team is desperately needing either a more rim protecting minded big or another athletic wing. One of the two. I'm not saying you're going to find a trade suitor for Bradley Beal, but I think the fit at times is either really, really working or it's really, really not, right? I just feel like there's times, and this is a Phoenix Suns team that is probably a top 5 team in the league right now. They have won a couple games in a row. They've won 3 straight now. I just feel like the fit is like, I still got to see more from it. I'm still got to have to see more from Bradley Beal as a son. Yeah, I feel like now with the Tyus Jones, it's like you have another guard that, in Tyus Jones, I feel like he needs the ball in his hands. You want the ball in Tyus Jones' hands because he's a steady guard. He's not going to turn the ball over, and he's somebody you trust with the ball. Not saying I don't trust Bradley Beal with the ball. It's just more so the fit with him on the court with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant is so like. It's wishy-washy. It's super up and down. I'm going to give him more time throughout the season because I think Coach Bud and his offensive mind can really figure out the best ways to use Bradley Beal. But I feel like there's times on the court where Bradley Beal is kind of out of space, out of his role a little bit, and he's still trying to figure out his role on the way. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see. It's just one of the things that I'm kind of looking at this Phoenix Suns team going forward is the fit with Bradley Beal and if it is ever going to kind of come full circle for this team. They're in a interesting position. They definitely have a depth problem. That was a big question mark to start the year. Jamal Murray just hasn't been the same. Jamal Murray has not been the same player he was 2 years ago. I don't know if it's the injuries racking up, but I feel like he always is going to miss a good chunk of the season due to injury. And I just feel like ever since last year, he just has not looked the same. That's a big question mark for the Denver Nuggets. Missing their lead shot creator, who I feel like is struggling to create space sometimes. Now looking at Aaron Gordon being out for a couple of weeks, that just came out today. That's a huge loss because they have nobody to replace him. At least with Jamal Murray being out, you have Russell Westbrook, who is an established point guard. He knows how to run the show. Like, you kind of get the best of both worlds with Russ because you kind of need more of that defense that Russ gives you, but like you kind of have to live with some of the bad stuff on offense at times. But I just feel like this team is kind of maxed out. Like, Aaron Gordon's going to miss time. You can't replace him. Michael Porter Jr., I feel like, is what we're going to get from Michael Porter Jr. for the rest of his career. I don't know if there's another layer on the onion to peel off of his game to where you're going to all of a sudden start seeing him play make and everything else like that. Not saying he needs to because he's already an elite, tall, good rebounding forward that can shoot the piss off the ball. So looking at this, it's like, I just don't know what this team is looking like the rest of the season. I feel like they're going to miss Jamal Murray for some time. That's always going to happen. Now you're missing Aaron Gordon for some time as well. Now it's really a lot on the back of Nikola Jokic, who I feel like is still the best player in the league. They just don't really have enough spacing to like really make it work. But you have Nikola Jokic, you have the best player in the world, so you're going to luck yourselves out because you have him on some nights, right? So like looking at this, I'm interested to see what this team looks like. I don't really know if there's any real way to pivot in their cap situation to pivot to really making a big time move other than trading like Michael Porter Jr., but I don't even know if that's the road they want to go down. Maybe they want to go down with the ship this year and then address it next year. But I just feel like this team is maxed out. I don't really see this team being able to sustain a deep playoff push unless they go find some more depth. And I think Christian Braun has been good for them, but like, they really have gotten nothing out of that bench. Like, nothing at all. So, looking at that, I think the Denver Nuggets definitely need to make some moves, but if they don't, I feel like this team is just a little bit capped out at this point. Going on to the Clippers, I would be very high on this team if they had Kawhi Leonard healthy, because the things that they can do defensively and the way Ty Lue is as a coach, I feel like this team would have been amazing defensively, and I think they still are really good defensively. But without Kawhi Leonard and his offensive ability to take over quarters and halves, James Harden's been phenomenal. Have to say he's been phenomenal, but James Harden in this league today is just not enough. You need to have a 1 or 2 or third option. I think Norman Powell, less can be more. Norman Powell is hooping. But I just feel like this team goes through quarters to where like the offense just isn't getting going, especially when Harden's on the bench. It's like, who's really creating out there? I still find it mind-boggling that Bones Highland cannot find a way to step on the basketball court. When this team lacks shot creation off the bench, I think Chris Dunn is a good point guard, but like Chris Dunn isn't like creating the offense for you. He's more of a defensive-minded guard has is. He's somebody you put on the opposing team's best perimeter defender, perimeter offensive player, and then rock out with that. But I feel like this team just kind of lacks shot creation outside of James Harden and Norman Powell to where like it really limits this team. And offensively, defensively, they're staying in games. They've had a couple close games with Phoenix. They're going to be in a lot of games because James Harden's playing really well. Zubac is having a career year. Zubac is hooping. He's 20 and 10 a night next to James Harden. I almost could say this is like the best fitting pair big man wise in James Harden's entire career with how Zubac plays and how he can just bully somebody down in the low block. He's so low maintenance. So where James Harden's feeding Zubac an easy 12, 15 points a night. So like, and his ability to rebound, I like what they've gotten out of him. Norman Powell, I feel like this is kind of Norman Powell I expected. But this team just doesn't have enough offensively to really carry them through this entire season. They're going to need Kawhi Leonard back at some point, but I think they're going to be in a lot of games, but they're going to lose a lot of games because I think they lack the offensive capabilities, which really ain't on the team because Kawhi Leonard's hurt. Can't really do nothing about that. That whole conversation is not something I want to get into. Now getting into another LA team, the JJ Redick era, I feel like it's working. They're playing a lot through AD. They have lost 3 out of 4. Bad loss to Detroit the other night, who Detroit has been playing better, but you shouldn't lose to Detroit. Anthony Davis had a good game. He's continuing to have probably an MVP caliber season to start the year with how they're using him offensively, but they don't have enough. They don't have enough. This is kind of like what I'm saying with kind of the Bucks in a way. Like, they're kind of like the Bucks because they have 2 stars. LeBron is aging. Dame is aging. Giannis and AD are so dominant. But looking at the surrounding pieces, I like Austin Reeves. I think he's been doing phenomenal. D'Lo's always going to be up and down. Like, they don't have a backup big still. I think they're just lacking the connecting pieces still. So this LA team might be on the same trajectory they have in the past couple of years in terms of what season they're going to have. But looking at the Lakers, I feel like they have taken strides. When you do watch the Lakers, their offense is completely a lot better. But I just feel like they're still missing some of those connecting role players to make this thing go up to another level. And I don't really know how they get there without moving somebody like D'Angelo Russell, which if you moved on from D'Lo, I think Austin Reeves could transition to being like really that full-time point guard for this team because he has been able to be really good with the ball in his hands to where D'Lo has the contract to where you can move that and be a lot more flexible. But it's early in the year. They have lost 3 out of 4. I'm not really too worried about this team. I think this team is going to be in a good position when it comes down to winning time, when it comes time late in the season to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be in a good position at the end of the line. But I think the JJ Redick era for the Lakers has but I think the JJ Redick era for this year has really worked so far up to this point. Still got to see more of it, though. Still got to see this more in a bigger sample size. Now going into last 2 things I want to talk about on first impressions. I feel like Victor Wembanyama has been a little underwhelming. First of all, get well soon to Greg Popovich. He is dealing with some health stuff. But I feel like Victor Wembanyama and the shot diet just isn't really what I've been wanting to see to start the year. There's a lot of he's just playing on the perimeter. It's like he's a big-ass small forward, if that makes sense. Like, he's just on the perimeter, tween them. Like, there's a lot of stuff. I understand he's talented. I understand his bag is deep. The game is, like, becoming harder for him because he's not on the block. It makes me sound like an old head, but that's the truth. With all that size in his frame, he's bailing the defense out by taking all those threes a game. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a place for it, because there definitely is. Victor Wembanyama is holding himself back because he's not being dominant on the interior. And this doesn't also help because I don't feel like he has enough talent around him. I think they did a disservice to him by not being more aggressive. I feel like they should have hopped on the Darius Garland train when they could have, for sure, because they have extra draft capital. But now, with the Cavs of how good they started this season, that's super, like, not going to happen for them. But looking at this, I think Vic and his shot diet needs to change. That's really all I'm looking at. The talent's obviously there, but I feel like there's times where he's bailing the defense out and making it hard on himself because he is easy to guard on the perimeter. Because he has the talent to handle the ball on the perimeter, but his bread and butter should be on the inside. He doesn't really have a go-to move or a go-to spot to get to. It's kind of more so he's just free-flowing, which is fine at sometimes, but there's also times where he could be really punishing teams down low, and he just doesn't. I feel like he wants to shoot the ball a little too much. Like I said, there's always a place for that in today's NBA, but I feel like to unlock the San Antonio Spurs team and to unlock what he needs to be for the Spurs team going forward. I feel like it needs to start with his shot diet being more in the paint, working inside out, because a lot of times he's just floating on the perimeter, taking tough fall away shots. Even at his size, it's going to be a tough shot. I just think the shot diet needs to be changed a little bit. Now with the Pelicans, last team I wanted to talk about, I think less could be more with this team. They have yet to have DeJounte Murray, but when I look at this team, they have a lot going on. No DeJounte Murray, no Trey Murphy to start the year. But when they get those guys back, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of guys that need the ball. There's a lot of guys that need shots. I know DeJounte Murray could go back to being a full-time point guard, but DeJounte Murray gonna need his. CJ McCollum gonna need his. Like, Zion go definitely need his. Brandon Ingram's gonna need his. Trey Murphy, he's gonna need his as well. And then you lack a big man presence, but like you could easily find a big man on the market for the assets you have. I don't know why they're not wanting to pull the trigger on a Brandon Ingram move. You see, you don't want to pay him. You just pay Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's going to come back off of injury. He's going to be ready to go. I understand why you're not moving Brandon Ingram, but I also don't understand, like, there's just a lot going on to where I think this team could be in a position to where maybe less could be more if they were able to subtract, maybe bring in a better fitting piece, and then see what they have with this team. That's all I'm really saying. They desperately need DeJounte Murray because they need a real point guard. Jose Alvarado's been giving them great production, though, especially with the injuries that they have had to the roster. I know Zion's missed a couple games as well. I know B.I.'s missed like one game. But looking at that, this team just has a lot going on. I think less might be more for the Pelicans moving forward, but it's still very early in the season. I got to see what they look like with DeJounte and Trey Murphy. Could be dangerous, but I could see it also going a really bad direction to where like there's just so much going on to where there's just one ball on the court. And it's hard to find all shots for those guys, and especially when they are desperately lacking a big man. Interested to see where they go from the Pelicans moving forward, but that is really all I have for my first impressions on the first couple of weeks of the NBA season. Continue to stay up to date. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NBA content. Obviously, NFL content is still popping out week to week, but NBA content is going to be more every 1 or 2 weeks when I feel like making a video about a certain team. I feel the NBA is so tough to kind of sit and digest because everything's happening in a 24-hour period. I know I wanted to sit down and make this video today because there's no games going on today because of voting. So it gave me some time to really sit back, digest a lot of the stuff that has been happening through the year. But NBA content is going to be more sporadic because it'll be like, man, I really want to talk about a specific minded team. But I want to get this first impressions video out, just talking about a great majority of teams and kind of the bigger storylines to start the year. But that is all I have for this episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope you tune in to future episodes.